Is the so-called Apostle Paul of biblical fame part of the royal presidential bloodlines? I'm Jeffrey Darty, the Christian Whistleblower. Much research has been done and much ado has been made about the fact that it seems that all of the U.S. presidents, at least up until Donald Trump, I haven't been able to confirm any research on him, are members of royal slash presidential bloodlines, i.e., they're all related, they're all of the family. Some of them rather distant cousins, but all of them related. Now, many people within the paranormal, conspiracy, truth movement type of associations have made much of this fact, and it certainly is a very, very interesting fact to point out. And a lot of people are ready to call it a conspiracy and call it an intentional thing that happens, and to say that we are ruled by a monolithic group of people. And I see some merit in that thought. I see some merit in that discussion. I see some merit in their thinking, because it does make sense. It makes one wonder what's going on. But the people that are willing to look at the governmental aspects of this, I would submit to you, what about the Apostle Paul, the main figure outside of Jesus, and really the main figure of Roman Catholicism and Roman Protestantism, is Saul of Tarsus, who became the Apostle Paul. Well, turns out that a researcher who wrote the book, The Atlantean Conspiracy, and don't send me a bunch of emails saying, oh, that's a flat earth guy. Yes, I do know that. But I also know that this book is full of incredible research on a lot of different fronts. And one of the things that he has studied, and his name is Eric Dubay, and this is from his book, The Atlantean Conspiracy, exposing the global conspiracy from Atlantis to Zion. I don't agree with him at this point about flat earth. He is an interesting individual. We're both martial artists, and I do respect a lot of his research, and I respect a lot of his research on flat earth. But I'm not convinced. So no, I'm not a flat earth person. But if you read through this portion of his website, and that's American Presidential Bloodlines, he goes into great detail talking about the aristocratic, and he cites this book, Bird's Peerage and Baronetage, Ancestors of American Presidents. There's a lot of research that goes into this, and one of the very, very interesting parts of the research is that prominent in this royal bloodline is one King Herod. You've heard of Herod the Great. You've heard of Herod Tetrarch, who was ruling Jerusalem in the time that the Christ was believed to have been in Jerusalem. And interestingly enough, the Apostle Paul was within the Herodian family. The Apostle Paul was a very close relation to King Herod, a nephew, possibly a cousin, but very close relationships with the king. So if you are a believer in this conspiracy, if you are a believer in this curiosity, that all of the American presidents and all of the royalty across the globe, all of the leaders of the New World Order, all of the leaders of governments that are enslaving us and attempting to keep us in a slave matrix, I call on you to step up and say, how does that make you feel when the religious matrix, and included in here is Constantine, many of the popes, many of the preachers of the day, and even the Apostle Paul himself, part of this ruling royal / presidential bloodline. If we're going to make a big deal out of it, and if we're going to give it credence when it's being applied to the political realm, we must also give it credence when it's give it credence and apply it to the religious realm. And the more you step back and the more you really begin to look and see, friends, there's very little difference between religion and politics. That's why they say don't ever talk about politics or religion, because when you start talking about them, you start realizing it's like Republican, Democrat. It's just two different names for the same thing. At least since 325, when Constantine made Christianity the official religion of the Roman Empire, at least since then, the government and the church has been, for all intents and purposes, the very same entity. And if you really are for the separation of church and state, all of my truther friends that are very much for the separation of church and state, all of my truther friends that are Christian and very much for the separation of church and state, when are you going to start lobbying for the dissolution of the 501c3 nonprofit status of religious institutions? When are you going to start lobbying for true separation of church and state, and not just separation that you think makes it easier for you? May I suggest that it is highly hypocritical for you to be an advocate of the separation of church and state while your church and churches reap trillions of dollars of financial benefit because there is no separation of church and state in financial matters. Might I suggest that that reeks of some hypocrisy? Might I? Apostle Paul is part of the royal and presidential bloodlines. There is no separation of church and state. Church and state are the same thing, at least since 4th century. And when are we going to wake up and realize that and become consistent in our application of research and investigation? I'm Jeffrey Darty, the Christian Whistleblower, encouraging you to guide your own spirit, master your own ascension, be your own guru, unwind your mind, and unindoctrinate yourself.